Hey friends. I so something that's coming up for me today, and this is kind of in the context of having um having had some great sessions today with some students, clients, friends. And also, for whatever reason, it's one of those days just worked out that one thing rolled right into the next, right? Like it has the effect at the end of the day of me feeling like I've been running all day and I literally almost haven't left this chair. And and it's both a feeling that I got a lot accomplished and also a feeling of what happened to all the stuff that I wanted to do. And so something that actually showed up. It's funny because it's the key is always right there in front of you if you're willing to look. Um, something that came up just in one of my first two sessions of the day. We were talking about the issue of boundaries and how our own boundaries, how we enforce our own boundaries, and um, how we hold them. It's like it's like this unseen layer that's determining so much of our life, because on some level we can have clarity about goals, we can have discipline, we can have organization, we can have we can have our values clear, we can have so many elements of our life kind of in our grasp. It's like we can do the work and get really clear on all those things and get some good systems in place. But then boundaries and holding those boundaries are the literal rubber meets the road of everyday work. And they become it's like the difference between the design, the R&D phase of a product and the design phase of a product to the manufacturing phase of the product. And like, does that manufacturing process actually install the level of quality and the level of excellence that you designed into your product? Because if it doesn't, then all that design doesn't get translated into quality, doesn't get manifested in reality. And boundaries for me are the way that they're showing up are actually the way, okay, this is how I define what I'm doing with my time. And there's an interesting correlation here, but that I've noticed. I've observed this primarily in myself, although I would also say I observe it in other people with whom I have enough contact to actually be able to even be aware of this. But how we hold our internal boundaries with ourselves. In other words, how clearly we insist to ourselves that we maintain the commitments we've made to ourselves almost always translates very directly to how we maintain our external boundaries and whether we let other people kind of roll over our boundaries or not. Those things are just very related, and it's good to note that, because sometimes we can get a kind of a sense of like, what we it's easy to well, just blame things external, right? It's easy to blame things on external circumstances or on other people or on, it's always easier to have reasons outside of ourselves for why things didn't go the way we wanted, or things aren't going the way we wanted, or I didn't quite get done what I wanted to get done today, or whatever it is. And and fun, it's so interesting because this stuff really does. As soon as even just as I begin speaking about this, it's like a fractal opens up as of like all the different ways that this theme is kind of in my life, and that this is something that I'm kind of wrestling with. There's almost like a sense of, it's like honesty with myself, I guess, that I'm feel like I'm being compelled to manifest. I filled out a values exercise today. This came out of a coaching session with my coach Kareen, who pointed me in the direction of a guy named Dr. DeMartini, who's put together a test or a quiz for determining our core values. It was a really interesting process. I found it, it gave me a good picture that was pretty much what I would have expected, but also not, but also illuminating in the way that the questions are framed, and in the way that you then kind of like tally up your own answers and take a look at what you've actually said. And I would say my life is in alignment with these values. My life is really, in some ways, I am putting my money where my mouth is, and I am on track with what is deeply important to me, not just with what external pressures impose on me or whatever, or my internal patterns, But then I don't always hold to my own schedule, or I don't always hold to my own processes and practices. And then of course the question is like, well, why? Is it that there's some non-alignment in me? Is there actually something about what I'm aiming for that's not fully in alignment? And that's why, even though I feel like I'm on course, I also get so in other words, the lack of follow through, the lack of definition in those boundaries is because there's a gravitational pull that I'm not even aware it's there, and it's kind of pulling me off course. Or is it simply a matter of the fact that when we are evolving and when we're on our edge, we are under pressure, and there's a certain, and like creating new clarity, creating new definition for ourselves is always a challenge, right? That's because that's kind of what's showing up today. I'm not convinced that that's necessarily the whole kit and caboodle as far as my whole life is concerned. But what's definitely showing up today is a sense that sometimes there's just a kind of resistance to the next level of rigorousness that we're imposing on ourselves. And we know we want it. We know unequivocally that we want it, because it's the tangible next phase of our dreams, or it's the tangible next stage of our life that we're excited about. It gives us literal energy to consider it, to see it. One of the things that was I found illuminating about the values test today is that DeMartini's questions almost always contained the sort of suffix at the end of the question. They would say, how is this manifesting in your life? In other words, you're asked to list the things you value and the things you think about and the things you talk about, all these various ways that our values manifest. But you couldn't write one down unless it was somehow manifesting in your life, which I thought was a really good yardstick of whether it's a true value or not, because you can fantasize about stuff for years and never make a single movement in that direction. But if something is deeply a core value, you'll move towards it. We will create movement towards it, and there will be evidence of that manifesting in our life. How is this manifesting in your life is the phrase that kept coming up. Which, so again, I found that a really useful metric for distinguishing between, well, this is stuff that I spent a lot of time thinking about, but what's really happening with it, you know? But those things that really are manifesting in our life and that really are drawing us forward and that have us on the edge of our seat as we, as we move through life, as we get to the next phase of things, and as we continually feel that compulsion to go further, those things are right there, and they're attracted. It's like I feel it like an attraction between where I am and where I see myself able to go. And so often, the difference between where I am and where I want to go is just a higher level of rigor, a higher level of how effectively am I managing my time? How carefully, how wholeheartedly am I defending those things that I've plugged into my schedule and that I say I care about? I mean, when I think about somebody like Elon Musk, somehow this guy who's just a smidge older than I am has created a company that has revolutionized the car industry and revolutionized the space industry. And he was the lead engineer on both projects. Now, just leaving aside for a moment the level of genius that requires of a human being to have the capacity to do that, what kind of time management does that require? I mean, if I'm complaining about how I don't have time to do what I want to do in my day, how does Elon Musk just have a 64-hour day that he's working with? Probably not. He's probably dealing with the same day as all of us. But I'll bet you there's structure in there that is so rigorous and so detailed that the kind of movement that can happen is just stunning. And so I think that's what's showing up for me today in my own life as a question for what do I really care about? If I'm not defending a boundary, if I'm not saying here's where this starts, here's where this ends, and what am I actually doing with this time so that all those things make it into my day, then why is that not happening? What is replacing those things? What am I doing that's not on what's vying for that time that's somehow edging these things out? And is that really what I want? Does that other time that I'm spending that's kind of crowding out the things that are explicitly there, is it because I actually value that more and I should just be more transparent and honest with myself about it, what I really do care about? Or do I need to defend my boundaries? Do I need to just be willing to create that next level of clarity, create that next level of because it takes energy. In order for a membrane to be defended, it has to be energized. Otherwise it's like a floppy shield that just kind of like caves as soon as something hits it. But if something is really energized and activated, it'll do the job of carving our day, carving our time. I have this sense sometimes, I love the poet Hafiz, who talks about sculpting light, because creativity and artistry happen in all different mediums. Sculpting light is the process of allowing inspiration in and manifesting through our concreteness from all the way from gross to subtle, manifesting source. We can manifest source through time as well, carving our time and surfing the day so that our time takes us on the journey that we want to go on, as opposed to feeling kind of pummeled by time. I have the sense sometimes of time kind of pummeling me, or time compressing me or squishing me into a position where I feel like, oh, I didn't get enough of time. I didn't get enough time. Well, I had as much time as Elon Musk did today. What have I done with it? Right? What have I actually done with it? So that's what's showing up today. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Yeah, you're awesome. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.